This is made up of wires coming back with an offline stream, continuing on what we were working on before, which is finding the right symbols for overlays that use existing code. If you want to know more about Castlevania Symphony of the Night, go to soten.z.dev, where you'll find links to the source code and a Discord server where we're talking about Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You can see the progress of many of the overlays and binary files that we've been working on. So getting back to what we were talking about before, often you'll have code that's used in several different places, and what's missing between existing decompiled code and what you're working on is really just symbol names. We use variables in programs as nice ways to remember what portions of memory are used for, and this is no different. What we're doing though is we know the address that we want a particular variable to be stored at, and we just need to tell the tooling to do that for us. So in this case, we want to be using some of these create entity functions that exist already, but we need symbols that are mapped with particular names to be able to reuse that code in this HD version of the overlay. So those symbols are now mapped, and I'm going to run Splat and hope that those go away. What happens here is that Splat doesn't always rewrite files when it doesn't know that something has changed that's relevant to it. It's actually something that I think could be improved, but I haven't looked into what things trigger Splat for rebuilding. We can look at that. I'm going to build this and see if this is working, and then we can look at that Splat config and see where some improvements might be able to be made. Okay, so this still failed. So I'm going to back out. What we're trying to do is reuse this create entities horizontal code. We have some assembly here that since I need to tell Splat to modify this, let's look at it anyway. So Splat config is used to break up a file into multiple segments, and those segments are code or data or other things like that. And so the segment section looks like this, and we're the first value in each of these is an offset into a file. The second is a type. If there's no type provided, then Splat will treat that as data. And then, actually it might it treats a C file, and will either generate that C file or use one that's there and existing. And then a name, which is optional. If you don't give it a name, it'll use the offset as the name of the file or directory, depending on what it is. So in this case, I should be able to just save this file, the same thing as touching it, if you're familiar with the Unix command touch, and hopefully that's enough, yeah, to rebuild those, and that worked great. So what I still want to figure out though is what is preventing these from matching. So we have these assembly files here. Let's actually try it again now that we know that some of this was extracted, and see if no, it still doesn't work. I just want to see if those worked again. So we're seeing some differences in create entities to the left and create entities to the right. So let's start a new scratch and see if there's something more than symbols that are missing there. I'm going to open those files first. So these are in create entities horizontal. And so we have a few symbols that we know we have defined now or added to the symbol map. This layout object position horizontal should be there. And we can look at the assembly that goes along with it for this overlay. I'm expecting these things to work out. It maybe this G entity is destroyed variable that's missing, but we'll see. So we want to look at non-matching functions. This is in the create entity directory. Splat will create a directory for each C file, and we want to look at let's look at create entities to the left, and I'm going to go to the end of this line, and what I want to find here is, do we have symbols that exist in this file which were given some type of automatic variable? Excuse the scrolling. So G entities destroyed was defined, and if I don't see anything, so these are going to be things prefixed with d_hd, and none of them exist here. So I'm going to take this over to Splat, and we'll see if there's any code difference. I would be really surprised if there is, but there might be. So we're going to create a new scratch. So these files are found in the PSP version, but these were created with the PlayStation SDK and other things like that. So I have the this is the M2C decompiled version. What I want to use is the one that we currently have. So I'll copy that, and M2C wasn't able to determine what the signature was for these, so we'll have to provide that signature. So let's do that. I'm just going to get the signature from those header files. So we need to find first entity to the right. And then create entity when in vertical range. So if you didn't watch the previous stream, what these files are responsible for is going through a list of sorted entities. There's two lists with all of the entities. One is in order vertically, and the other is in order horizontally. In this case, we're looking at horizontal entities. So we're looking at all the entities that are for this stage that are within some view window based on our position. And we're gonna just scan through this list, evaluating each entity what its position is, and determine if it's in the viewport and we should allocate it or not. But then we call another function, create entity when in vertical range, and that's going to see if, okay, we're in the correct horizontal range for this particular entity, but should we also, is it also in the vertical range as well? So we have a few macros that are not defined here, and I'll grab those as well. So we need position forward, backward, and start and end. I'll grab all of these. I have these behind me here. So G layout object horizontal, it was not able to figure out what that type was, so we need to provide the correct type for that, which is a pointer to a 16-bit value. And then the object's position horizontal is an 8-bit value. So create entity when in vertical range. It looks like we have a issue here because what we're passing in is a pointer to 16-bit values, but what it wants is a layout entity. We'll replace that for now. So we do see some additional code that's in this version that isn't in the original, and it's slightly different code. I'm actually somewhat surprised that this is the case here. So down here on line 28, it looks like this this condition isn't happening, and we're just doing the scan without without that code in place. I'm going to turn off built-in function declarations for some of the standard functions. That wasn't a perfect match, however. So the structure of this is actually different enough that this looks like a different implementation. It looks like it's going the opposite direction potentially. So in this case, we're adding the size of a layout entity and going the other direction as we're scanning through. I'm going to get rid of these. These are not necessary for this implementation. On line 33, we have some register differences. Actually, the order of these is different. And so let's look at this. So we're doing less than or equal to. If we switch that, so yeah, we're going in the opposite direction for these. We're calling find first entity to the left. This implementation uses find first entity to the right. So this is a pretty surprising change. I'm actually going to go back through and see if this code is in the warp overlay for HD, because I would be somewhat surprised if I'm the first person to have come across this. So what I want to do is see if createEntity.h is being included in warp, and I need to do that recursively. It is. Let's see if that is being included for everything. It is. Let's look at the Splat config and see if this particular file is being included. So this will be stwarp. It is as well. So the warp room uses the same code as the rest of as the rest of the game, and for whatever reason, this center overlay is using a different implementation. So let's fix this, and then we will try to get this back into the rest of the code without disrupting anything. So we'll need, in this case, it might be best to create a separate create entity specifically for HD that we can include. My guess is that other stages will use this version as well. Or did I upload the wrong function? This could be as well. So let's look at that. Do I still have this in my buffer? No. I'm going to delete this. There is a possibility that I uploaded the wrong assembly, so I want to be very sure that I'm doing the right thing before I go off on a tangent. And so I am doing create entities to the left. And I'm going to copy that. What it looks like, though, is that this might be the implementation of create entities to the right. And so it's possible that these two are just flipped. So when I grab the C code for that somewhere, so this will be in create entities horizontal. I'm just copying this in the background. Excuse the lack of motion on the screen. All right, so I'm going to use that implementation. I need to do the same thing as before. There's several types that are either incorrect or need to be defined. I don't remember specifically if this is void, but I'm going to treat it like such. And then this is a 16-bit value, and there's no second argument. The decompiler sometimes will add a second argument if it doesn't know the signature for a function, because the compiler has used an A register. A register is used for the first, I believe, 8 arguments to a function. And then I need to do the same thing with these macros that I don't have. So this matches. And it matches perfectly. So what has happened is through these were produced by tooling that goes through and looks for matches of functions, and that tooling it was an earlier version of a tool that we have, but that tooling inferred the wrong symbol for those. So I'm going to go through, and that's a pretty simple fix. We need to swap the addresses for these functions. So we should have symbols in here saying where they are, and effectively these just need to be flipped. We'll need to flip the names. Oops. We'll need to flip the names here as well. And then I'm going to clean and extract. And so we haven't included any other assembly yet. Or, sorry, replace the assembly with C. But now we should be able to. And yep, that works fine. So we ran into an issue because the symbol names were incorrect. And actually, this code probably produced the same assembly in the right order, just with the wrong symbol name. But because that symbol name is different, now other things that need to call that are going to have the wrong address. And when they have the wrong address, the value of that function is wrong. And it's possible that there's some other mismatches that were occurring here that, oh, that's not what I wanted, that were caused by that. So let's look at above and below. And I just want to make sure that that's the correct order. Yes, above and below is the correct order. So we should be able to replace those now as well. So I want create entities vertical, find where my above and below are. It's these lines here. And so we should be able to get rid of that assembly as well, and those work as well. So we're getting closer and closer. This is starting to look much more like this header file that everything else includes. So the last two are these init room entities and update room position. I don't know if we have all the symbols yet for these, but we'll find out right now. We do. And then the last one, update room position. Again, I don't know if all the symbols are there, so we'll figure that out. Make sure the right version is, or the right file is included, and that works as well. So now all of these are correct, and we can actually get rid of all of this and just use the same version that is used by all of the other stages. I want to find, so I had just updated this when I created this overlay, so I want to see the version of this, what the content was prior to my previous commit, which was, yeah, just including that header file, and it does the rest. So let's see if that works. So we have other definitions of these globals, so we need to update the Splat config to use our BSS entries instead of the ones that were extracted. So I want to confirm the addresses before I do that. So I'm going to look at the extracted assembly in the HD directory, because that's the version of the game we're working on. Stage, send, data, and this was for create entity. And SBSS means small uninitialized data. And that does start at 1BE00. And I just want to confirm that that's the same value here, and it is. So I'm happy with that. This message box T page should actually be part of cutscene. So I'm gonna have to update that address, and let's confirm that. It actually shows up in miscellaneous. So I'm going to split this at that EBE10 address and call this E miscellaneous. And then for create entity, I don't want to use the extracted data anymore. I want to use the BSS section from the compiled object file. So now when I make extract and make, it should switch over. Okay, so something still is not quite right. Let's clean. I did some splits in there just to make sure that there's not some residual other stuff going on. Okay, so this is still failing, so let's Let's see if we can tell what. I have a tool I call diff stage. And so this is going to give us some basically a diff of the binary. So I want to look at where the difference is. So here at address 12C90, or offset 12C90 in the file, this is actually byte 0, byte 1, byte 2. So this is 12C92. We have a different value here, and we need to figure out what is causing that different value. What I also want to look at, so we need to find what code that is first. But everything else is in place, so it looks like it's probably an address or an offset that got mangled along the way. So I want to take this offset, and these offsets are in the extracted files as well. We can look at, so this is 12C90. So this is happening somewhere in this collision file, which is actually a shared file as well. I don't think this needs to be SPSS, but we'll just double check to make sure. Okay. So what we can do now, we can, if we reload this file, it doesn't exist anymore because we're using the other version, or we're using the compiled version. I will go back to this version though, and then in this common create entity header file, just for right now, I'm going to just say if the version isn't HD, include this. I can't do that permanently because this will break warp. I'm going to make extract and make to get those symbols back. And we still have something odd going on. This layout looks correct. Let's make sure that emisc okay, so that did get created. And let's look at ecollect. Actually, it's possible that these are already being defined. So this emisc can come from that file. I'm not seeing where this this BSS is being declared or defined. So the normal, or the other stages have moved to a defined BSS file. I don't necessarily like that. I'd rather have these declared near where they're being used. But it appears that this isn't being allocated anymore in the standard file, so I do need to get rid of that and use one created by Splat. So the last thing I'm going to check is if I revert my changes here and go back to a duplicated version of this, I can get rid of this. I just want to make sure that this compiles and matches again. And it does. Okay. So let's try this one more time. Instead of using the shared version, I'm going to pull this in here and compile. So the compiler's upset because we're defining these symbols in both places. I can get rid of the symbol names, and I think this will work. And it just happens that these are going to be at the same address as memory. It doesn't work. Okay. Tricky. So we can go back to the BSS for this. We'll get this. But that's not working either. Mystery. 1BE, 1F. Let's make sure that that is correct. So to me, these seem as if they are unrelated, because these, where things have failed, appear to be in a different location prior to these create entity values. Actually, some of these are, though, in this create entity space. Let's get rid of these padding. See if that makes a difference. No. I'm somewhat at a loss as to why this isn't matching, because what we're seeing is the data is in place and in end is the correct size. One other thing we can check is the map file. and see if there's anything happening unexpected there. So what we want to see is, for example, this layout object position horizontal should be at the address that we have here. I'm going to split this one more time. Vertical split. So we'll look for this symbol. And it is going to the BSS section. So we want this BSS section to be 16 bytes, which it is. One thing I'm not seeing, however, is what this BSS offset is. Oh, that is interesting. So it looks like maybe did I screw this up? No, seems fine. The miscellaneous BSS looked like it was coming out of order. I'm going to rename this. I'll just call it BSS. No, we can't do that because that's named already. This is the message tbox variable. Not the best name, and I know that doesn't match, but I need a unique name. I want to see if we're getting the same mismatches here. These values that differ, the BD versus BE and the A0 when none is there, they don't look like addresses. It looks just like data. It could be offsets. We see the same thing here. So the goal then, yeah, it's the same thing over and over. So somewhere there should be a BE00, and BDA0 is in its place. So let's see if we can find that somewhere. Let's look at that map again. Okay, here it is, this BDA0. And the guess is that this should be BE00. So let's see if that's something that's in here. BDA0, it isn't. So let's see if we can figure out what that is. Okay, so BDA0 is the start of SBSS, which is coming from the header. This should be compiled as part of the C file rather than coming from somewhere else. I'm going to back both of these out and see if I can map BSS that way. Do I still have the C file open? Yes, I do. So I'm going to get rid of these uninitialized values and try to get back to a working state. I'm going to have to clean. Well, this is a bummer. Now we've made too many changes and need to back out some of these. So let's figure out what we need to back out. Well, if this seems fine. Oh, I must have taken these out of the symbol table. No, they're there. Oh, I don't have declarations for them. Got it. Yeah, so when I was refactoring this, I got rid of my declarations here. So these are defined as part of the extracted data just in the assembly. And is this going to match now? Okay, this does match great. Okay, so let's kind of reassess. Splat is extracting this BSS data, and we know that we have the right addresses for that data, but when we try to declare it in C and allocate the space for it, we're not getting the right. Something's happening along the way to that translation, and we're not getting the right offsets in our compiled file. I am going to move this back, and we'll try this one again. Just kind of going one thing at a time, and I'll clean along the way. Just to make sure as I do these that these are working fine on a clean build. Oh, I put the dot in the wrong place. The dot in front of the type name in the Splat YAML means get it from the object that's compiled instead of get it from data that's been extracted. That's actually nice. Header BSS we can get. And so let's try it again. Well, let's see if we can get these in there. I'll first try without the padding. MetroWorks, I think, aligns these to 32-bit values, so I'm not surprised that didn't work because the padding is missing. And offsets, offsets are different. So let's pull that from the shared version. Oops. These static pad macros are something that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. Basically, they create a unique name. Okay, that worked. So we have all the padding in place. We have all the files included in order. Now we should be able to move back to this. What happened earlier, I'm not quite sure, but that is working now, which is nice. And we don't have to have any other extracted data, and now we're back to the base version of this shared create entity file. So we have a C file in the stage overlay that's going to pull in all of our code and data from shared headers for each of the stages. And so for this HD overlay, we don't have to write any code for this section. I do want to see, we got rid of a couple of the include ASMs along the way. I want to see how many are left. 25. So there was, I think when I committed this, about 37. So pretty quickly by mapping addresses for symbols, we've been able to get back down to knock out 12 of them relatively quickly. So I'm going to add all this, and one of the nice things about getting rid of the assembly, so we did have to go through and map a bunch of stuff, and we have 110 symbols right now mapped. So we need those mappings because we don't have a way otherwise to name the extracted assembly values. But once we have this in C, we've given a name to the location where those memory values are, and we have tooling to do that, to go through and lint those files. The format target for make will go through, and it'll remove any symbols that are in that file that don't have corresponding assembly data or code labels that are in assembly files. And so we should be able to see now a bunch of the stuff that we pulled into C. All of these can go away, which is awesome. The smaller that symbols file is, the better. Optimally, it would be nothing. But now we're down to 82, so that got rid of nearly 30 symbols by moving that code into C, which is awesome. So that is all I'm going to do today. We'll make clean and build one more time just to make sure that now that those symbols are gone, that everything still builds cleanly and everything's working. But that is closer and closer. This HD overlay for the center stage is decompiled and using shared code as much as possible. either code from the original PlayStation version or code from that's just shared across all the overlays. So we have been decompiling the center stage for the HD early development build of the PSP version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. If you want to know more about decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you can go to soten.z.dev, that's Z-X-E-E, and there you'll find a link to our GitHub repo where when I've finished with this, I'll submit a PR and that code will be available there for you to see and use. And if you want to participate, go there, see instructions on how to build, how to use all the tooling that we have. You can also find a link to the Discord server where we're chatting about all these things. I've been doing a lot of personal things lately and haven't been on Discord lately. Popped in every once in a while for a few minutes, but the Discord's very active. Lots of people there building a lot of really neat things to help us decompile more quickly. And the idea that we can get an overlay in one person in a week or so of work is pretty awesome compared to where things were just a few weeks ago. So I will. I typically stream Monday through Thursday. This next week I'm going to take a little vacation and won't be streaming, but this one's pre-recorded just for you guys. If you watch on YouTube, follow. If you or subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, and I will see you all next time. Adios.